People think I am rich and beautiful, but I am suffering. What are you doing here? Leave.
In the ancient village of Umudara, there lived a woman whose name carried power like thunder in the ears of the people. Her name was Madame Sarah. She was the richest woman for many miles. She owned massive lands, expensive cars, houses in the city, and the biggest mansion the village had ever seen. Politicians visited her. Chiefs bowed to her. Pastors prayed for her. Young women admired her beauty and elegance. Whenever Madame Sarah stepped out dressed in sparkling lace and gold jewelry, people whispered in awe. God has truly blessed her. She is living every woman's dream. I wish I could become like her. But behind the shining smiles and expensive perfumes was a secret darker than midnight. Madame Sarah had no husband. No child. No family close to her. And every single night, when the entire village slept, terrible cries escaped from her mansion. Only her bodyguards knew the truth. Hidden beneath the expensive wrappers she tied around her waist was a horrifying sore stretching across her stomach like rotten flesh. The wound smelled of death and never healed. Years ago, when poverty nearly destroyed her, Madame Sarah had traveled deep into the forest to meet a feared native doctor known as Dibia Oguma. The old man promised her riches beyond imagination. But wealth has a price, he warned. Blinded by desperation and greed, Sarah agreed. The rituals worked. Within 3 years, she became richer than everyone in Umudara. But soon after, the terrible sore appeared on her stomach. The native doctor gave her strict warnings. No human eyes must see this wound. The day someone sees it, 2 things will happen. Either that person will be sacrificed before 7 days, or you will die. Since then, Madame Sarah lived in fear. She never bathed in daylight. No maid lasted long in her mansion. And every servant was forbidden from entering her private room. Far away in the poor side of the village lived a beautiful orphan named Adanna. Life had never been kind to her. Her parents died when she was only 10 years old. Since then, she survived by washing clothes, fetching water, and selling firewood in the market. Villagers insulted her daily. Orphan. Poor girl. Child of suffering. But Adanna remained humble and hardworking despite her pain. One hot afternoon, news spread through the village that Madame Sarah was looking for a new housemaid. Immediately, many young women rushed to apply. They dreamed of eating good food and living inside the rich woman's mansion. When Adanna arrived, the other girls mocked her torn slippers and faded dress. She thinks rich people employ beggars. She cannot even afford body cream. But to everyone's surprise, Madame Sarah chose Adanna immediately. Something about the orphan girl's innocence caught her attention. From the very first day, Adanna worked faithfully. She cleaned the mansion from morning till night. She cooked delicious meals and obeyed every instruction. Soon, Madame Sarah began trusting her more than the others. For the first time in years, Adanna felt peace. She slept on a soft bed. She ate meat regularly. She even began looking healthier and more beautiful. But strange things happened inside the mansion. Every midnight, Adanna heard painful crying from Madame Sarah's room. Sometimes she heard strange whispers. Sometimes she smelled something rotten passing through the hallway. One night, she saw Madame Sarah's bodyguards carrying live goats into the woman's private room. The next morning, blood stains covered the floor. Fear slowly entered Adanna's heart. Still, she kept quiet. One rainy evening, heavy thunder shook the mansion while Madame Sarah traveled to the city for a business meeting. Adanna was cleaning upstairs when she suddenly heard a loud crashing sound from Madame Sarah's forbidden room. Her heart pounded. What fell inside there? She whispered. At first, she tried to ignore it. But curiosity defeated her. Slowly, she walked toward the door. The room was slightly open. Fear gripped her chest. She pushed the door gently. Creak. The room was dark except for candles burning around the bed. Then Adanna froze. Her breath disappeared. On the bed lay Madame Sarah's wrapper. And beside it, a giant, horrifying saw. The flesh looked rotten and swollen, stretching across the woman's stomach in terrifying circles. Worm-like veins moved beneath the skin. The smell was unbearable. Adanna covered her mouth in horror. Suddenly, who is there? Madame Sarah's voice thundered behind her. Adanna turned sharply. Madame Sarah stood at the door dripping wet from the rain, her eyes filled with terror. For a moment, silence swallowed the room. The rich woman realized the impossible had happened. Someone had seen it. No, Madame Sarah whispered shakily. Adanna stumbled backward. Madam. I'm sorry, the woman's face slowly transformed into rage. You were never supposed to see that. Adanna screamed and ran. Madame Sarah shouted furiously. Catch her. Immediately, the bodyguards stormed upstairs. Adanna ran through the mansion barefoot as thunder roared outside. She pushed past tables and flower pots before escaping into the rainy night. The bodyguards chased after her with flashlights and sticks. Don't let her escape. She must not survive. Adanna ran through muddy roads, crying heavily. She did not stop until she reached the village square. Panting and terrified, she hid inside an abandoned hut near the forest. The next morning, the entire village buzzed with rumors. Madame Sarah announced that Adanna stole expensive gold jewelry and escaped. Anyone who found her would receive a huge reward. Greedy villagers immediately joined the search. But Adanna knew the truth. They were hunting her for sacrifice. For 2 days, she hid deep inside the forest, surviving on dirty stream water and wild fruits. Meanwhile, Madame Sarah's condition worsened terribly. The sore began spreading across her body. Each night she screamed louder in pain. Dibia Ogwema, the native doctor, arrived secretly at the mansion. You are running out of time, he warned. She must die before the 7th day. Madame Sarah cried bitterly. I cannot die. Find her. Back in the forest, Adanna met an old blind woman named Momayo. The old woman listened carefully as Adanna explained everything. Instead of fear, Momayo sighed deeply. So the curse has finally returned, she murmured. Adanna looked confused. Momayo revealed a shocking secret. Years ago, Madame Sarah sacrificed innocent people to maintain her wealth. Missing villagers were secretly used in rituals. The sore on her stomach is punishment from the spirits, the old woman explained. She carries wealth mixed with blood. Adanna trembled. Please help me, she begged. Momayo nodded slowly. There is only one way to break the curse. That night, Momayo took Adanna to an ancient shrine hidden deep in the forest. There, she handed her a small calabash filled with sacred oil. If Madame Sarah touches this oil while confessing her sins before sunrise on the 7th day, the curse will end. But if pride fills her heart, darkness will consume her forever. Meanwhile, the bodyguards finally tracked Adanna's footsteps to the forest. A fierce chase began again. Adanna ran desperately through trees while the men pursued her with cutlasses and lanterns. Rain poured heavily. Thunder cracked across the sky. At the edge of a cliff near the old shrine, the bodyguards cornered her. There is nowhere left to run, one shouted. Suddenly, Momayo appeared behind them. Before the men could react, violent winds swept through the forest. Their lanterns extinguished instantly. Terrified, the bodyguards fled. Adanna hurried back toward the mansion with the sacred oil. When she arrived, she found Madame Sarah lying weakly on the floor, surrounded by candles. The sore had spread horribly across her body. The rich woman looked half dead. You, Madam Sarah whispered weakly. Adanna stepped closer carefully. I came to help you. Madam Sarah laughed painfully. Help me. After all I did. Tears filled Adanna's eyes. You still have a chance to confess. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then suddenly, Madam Sarah began crying bitterly. She confessed everything. The rituals. The sacrifices. The greed. The innocent lives destroyed because of her desperation for wealth. As dawn approached, Adanna poured the sacred oil gently onto the terrible wound. A loud scream shook the mansion. The candles exploded. Dark smoke filled the room. Then suddenly, silence. The source slowly disappeared. Madam Sarah collapsed unconscious. When she finally woke up hours later, the wound was gone. But so was her wealth. Her bank accounts vanished mysteriously. Her businesses collapsed. Her expensive cars were seized. Within months, Madam Sarah became poor. Yet for the first time in many years, she slept peacefully without pain or fear. As for Adanna, the villagers finally learned the truth. People who once mocked her now respected her courage. Mama Yor eventually adopted her like a daughter. Years later, Adanna became one of the most loved women in Umudora. Until today, parents in the village warn their children, not every rich person found wealth through clean hands. Because sometimes, the most beautiful smiles hide the darkest secrets. The end.